Hi, and welcome to the second episode of Flex Life Fi. That's a little bit hard to say very quickly.
Yeah, try it 3 times fast.
I'm Suzanne, and this is my friend and coworker John. Um, we happen to be working out in South Dakota together now, but we've worked in Odessa, Texas before, and we spent
Well, and the Virgin Islands. Hey,
the
St.
Virgin
Thomas.
Islands. Yeah, that was a little bit different experiment. It was an experiment.
An experience.
Yeah, it was. So I'm going to interview John today, and we were going to talk about some things. When I met John in 2019, he was already involved in real estate, and I had just started the year before. So we had things in common. We did the same anesthesia as a nurse anesthetist, nurse anesthesiologist, whatever you want to say, and we have real estate in common. He has younger kids, like we said in the last podcast. I have older kids. I have all boys. He has all girls. We both kind of live in the Midwest. He's in Kansas. I'm in Missouri and Alabama. And I'm just going to ask you some things, if you don't mind, about, first of all, where did you start investing?
Well, I started investing in my little town in Kansas, and I started out with some very, very small investments. So the first investment I started out with was a $21,000 little house that I fixed up with my husband and my dad.
What year was this? So we can.
That was about 10 years ago.
So prices were very reasonable.
They were very reasonable.
Or was it that the house was so small and needed so much work that you got it for a reasonable amount?
So that was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and it came with the lot next door to it.
Oh, nice. Extra lot, bonus lot.
Bonus lot.
And so, how are you going to use this as an investment? Like, were you going to Airbnb it? Were you going to long term?
So this was a long-term rental, and the things that we did to it were new carpet, a new bathroom, and by new bathroom we did a shower, we did a vanity, and we also we painted the kitchen cabinets and put new refrigerator and sink into the kitchen, and I think we had to do a new HVAC, new roof, and we painted the house. So those are the things that we
So,
did.
how much did that cost altogether?
I think all
If you had to
told,
guess.
we put about 25,000 into it. So we bought it for 21, put another 25,000 into it.
So, did you pay cash for it? Did you get a.
We paid cash for it,
And do you still own it?
and we still own it today, and it rents for $900 a month.
So,
So it has paid for itself
still long
twice
term?
over. Yeah,
Okay. So, you never Airbnb'd it?
it has never been Airbnb,
And
and I think it's been empty maybe 3 months out of those 10 years.
so, if you're still renting it long term, you've owned it since 2015, 2016. What took you to the next, or what was your philosophy of investing? Let me go there.
So my whole idea was to slowly grow, and so the next house was maybe 6 months later, and that next house I think was a foreclosure, and it was a little bit bigger of a project, and we bought it for about 38,000.
Oh, nice.
So I almost doubled the size and doubled the amount of project that we had. But most of that work was upstairs, but that did not need a roof, which was nice. We did paint it as well, and we moved a wall, did an entire bathroom, and did some appliances in that house, had to do some stairs, and did some major yard work, I think, to that house.
For a long-term rental or Airbnb?
That was initially a long-term rental, then turned Airbnb.
So you're Airbnb in it now?
That one we sold about 2 years ago at a significant profit because the town actually appreciated it enough, and we put that into other rentals in town.
Cool. So I know you own a laundromat. You talked about it in the first episode. When did you decide to get in the laundromat, and why? What was the whole deal there? Why did you pivot away from houses and go into the laundromat? What were you thinking? Were you thinking long-term investment, or I need the money right now?
We didn't exactly pivot. It came available, and
It wasn't a laundromat when you bought it, right?
it was not a laundromat. It was a health supply store that went out of business, and it became available, and my parents said this would be a great place to put a laundromat. And I thought, passive income. That sounds great. And a laundromat is so easy. You just put quarters in, you have somebody go collect the quarters, and maybe have somebody clean it like once a week. It should be like really not a big deal. So
But it's more work than that, obviously.
I found out that it was more work, but I had enough income coming in that I thought, well, it's not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't cash flow immediately.
Okay.
And so I did a lot of research to find out how much it was going to be to put everything in, and found out how much of it should cash flow if it did X amount of turns per day, how many times the machines were used, how many machines would go into the building, fit, and how much it would cost to build it out. So we had a crew come in to do the build out, reinforce structurally the building, what types of machines had to go in because it did have a basement in the building. I learned a lot about the structure of buildings, how a laundromat had to work. It is more involved than I thought. I don't know how much you want to know about it, but
Well, did you watch a podcast to learn all this, or had you been interested in getting a laundromat?
my parents actually said the town really needs a laundromat. The other laundromat in town went out of business about 4 to 6 years before that. The owner got tired of it. The machines were outdated and stopped working. Most of them had not worked. The other one in town was part of a gas station, and most of those were not working and had...
Part of a gas station.
Yeah, most of them had gone out of function and were not kept up, and it was kind of dangerous location. So I said, well, we can take this project on, and I went to the bank, got financing for 98% of it. We owned the building outright because it was inexpensive enough to be able to do. So I got financing for the rest of it. Got some good recommendations for a builder to come in and gut the building, do the structural repairs that needed to be done for the vibration of the machines and all that good stuff. Had everything done inside and out technically, to be able to do just the downstairs as the laundromat. And then we have everything upstairs as offices now for our Airbnbs and for the laundromat itself. So
new machines, used machines.
all new machines. I didn't want to have everybody else's issues with machines, and most of the time people are selling machines that are so old that they're broken and or you can't get parts. So I've had to learn how to repair machines, which has been interesting.
Wow.
And it turns out the clientele at a laundromat is not always the best. as we discussed in the first episode. And so we have staff that are in it every day. And I've learned about staffing issues, and I've learned about how to do payroll, and learned about keeping the books for that, and it's been quite the journey. So that kind of is another side business. So we use all of our businesses kind of as a combined set of income towards this financial independence kind of journey. And so all of this is kind of coming together towards what we're hoping will lead towards our business kind of conglomerate to eventually get out of the everyday anesthesia role.
So you're trying to use the income from the properties and the laundromat as a way to lessen your need to go out and work.
Right. I don't want to sit here every day, every week, and be away from the family. So I'm using this as more of a way to become financially independent, but it's not in order to not work ever again. It's a way to provide for the family and still be able to, it's work, it's just not everyday work, if that makes sense.
So it's giving you the flexibility. So therefore,
Absolutely.
flex fi.
Yeah.
You can work, you can maintain, you can be coast fi, which means
I mean,
you have enough.
I'm still managing people, I'm still having to do things, but I don't have to be there every day.
Yeah. So somebody else is actually physically doing the work, and you're not. Like if you were in Europe or you were on a trip somewhere, you could still manage it from afar and not have to physically be there.
I still get phone calls every week, every day.
That's a negative part of it. So you bought the laundromat, you've got some rentals. I know you have a commercial building.
I do have another commercial building. I've gotten one set of phone calls in the last 2 years on the commercial building that has an H&R Block in it, and
Triple net?
it is a triple net lease. And
explain what a triple net is.
So that means all the taxes, utilities, insurance, everything is paid by H&R Block, and my mortgage is also therefore paid by them as part of the lease, but they don't know how much of the mortgage it is. It's just part of the lease.
Yeah.
So all of that, if the taxes and insurance go up, then their lease rate goes up as well. So every year that will adjust up, which makes me remember that I need to increase that. But
yeah.
It has not gone up on them yet in the last
2 years.
In the last year and a half. I guess we're
Okay.
a year and a half into this lease.
Okay.
And it's a 5-year lease, and then if they want to renew it, they can. Of course, H&R Block adjusts the building how they need to on the inside, so it's just the shell, and they build out the interior structure to how they want it.
So this, I would classify that more as a passive then.
That one is
Much more passive.
very much passive. The only thing that we're responsible for, and it's spelled out in the lease, there are like if the windows break, then they're responsible for the first $500, and if anything beyond that, then I would have to pay for that because it's part of the structure of the building. And then like the roof or the HVAC, something of that nature were to go, then I would have some responsibility towards that because it's part of the expected of the landlord kind of duties. But otherwise, that is a very passive thing. I would have to call somebody, but that's the most I would have to do.
So 2 things, you get your taxes done free and you don't have to pay any federal taxes.
The only taxes that I have to pay are my income tax. Yes.
You don't have to pay any IRS, right?
Oh, that never happens. No.
That's why you bought this, right? Or that's a benefit of it, right?
Oh, I wish. Yes.
But since we're on that subject, real estate versus stocks kind of thing, tell us why you do real estate. How does that affect your taxes?
So capital gains or, real estate, long-term gain is 15% typically. It may be 21% just depending on how much you are actually earning. And that's on the passive gains as opposed to Airbnb active gains. So it kind of depends on what type of real estate you're doing. But those gains are taxed at a lower rate than actively earned income. So also, against my active income, if you're a real estate professional, which my husband is considered a real estate professional because he does most of the active work in the business, so he is able to count those hours of work against the business, and therefore any of those losses that we would have in depreciation or any of the businesses that might have extra write-offs or a cost segregation that would be something that we bought and then would be able to depreciate faster, and then we can write off any extra losses against that active income, which decreases our taxable amount at the end of the year.
So you can write off depreciation, we can take our losses against a higher income because both of our husbands are real estate professionals.
Right.
My husband Bill actually had to come off of the railroad to handle all of our real estate investments, and he has been working on it, I would say 4 or 5 hours today, because we're trying to place some tenants in Alabama. We're taking applications. We're contacting the housing authority in Alabama for that, and he's able to do that from here, so he travels with me, whereas your husband stays home.
He stays home, but he works 6 hours today.
Yeah. So you can do it. It's not location dependent. So as opposed to showing up at, the railroad, you cannot send a substitute conductor to help with the train.
Yeah. So I worked about an hour on the laundromat today, but that was on spreadsheets and doing the financials and payroll and that kind of thing. But it's something that I can do on the computer.
So what's the thing we did a year or two ago where it's accelerated depreciation? What is that?
Well, that's part of bonus depreciation
depreciation.
The cost segregations that we talked about.
So bonus depreciation, your appliances, if you have a rental, is not going to last 27 and a half years, or
right.
If it's commercial, 39. So you get to write it off like every 7 years, or.
And Trump is actually talking about bringing back 100% bonus depreciation again. So let's hope that happens.
Yeah, that would be a good side effect
of Trump. There's some people that really don't like Trump, but real estate might actually start to like him for that anyway.
For that aspect. So you plan on doing this indefinitely?
So, there's a lot of ups and downs, and there have been some problem properties, and you have given me some grief about some of those fun problem properties, because I, unlike you, have gotten rid of a few properties, and I get a little grief from that.
Let me clarify.
The accounting side, and just because you're consistently buy and hold, and just buy and hold properties. But I have.
That's the grief I give him, is he's always buying and selling.
I have sold 2 properties. I have said that I'm going to sell other properties, but I have not sold other properties. 3.
Or 4.
3.
Or 5.
I've sold 3.
Or 15.
I've sold 3 properties in the last 4 years.
I gotta give you crap.
Yes, of course, and I deserve it. So I've sold 3 properties, 1 with a bad tenant, and 2 for transferring and buying other properties. But
you sold it because of the tenant? Why didn't you just get rid of the tenant?
I got rid of the tenant, and then I sold the property for the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
So, my goal in life is to leave more of a legacy, but I also want to
Explain that. What do you mean, legacy?
So I want my children to be able to
have options.
I want them to have options, but I also want my children's children to have options. So I want my children to be learning the business and having those business skills. I don't necessarily want to make them take over the business, But I want
Okay.
them to have that business knowledge, have the ability to run the business. And if they choose to take over the business, great. Or if I choose to sell off part of my portfolio to invest in one of their businesses that they choose to run. But I want them to have the skills to run their own business or develop their own business. And I think in doing so, they will probably choose to go that route as they develop their own whatever career field that they go into.
Cool.
If Elizabeth chose to become a veterinarian, I don't see her just becoming a veterinarian. I see her owning a veterinary practice of some sort, if that was the case.
Which you gotta know how to use it.
You have to know the concepts of the business, if nothing else. Just because once you get the taste and understanding of business, it's very hard not to take that role on. At least from our perspective, I think it's very hard not to say, man, I really want to give up that 60% to somebody else and just work, as opposed to doing the extra 15% of the work to run the business.
So you'd rather be an employee.
You'd rather not be the employee, and
Right.
you'd rather be the owner for the extra little bit of work that it's going to take, and that you can hire somebody else to do the parts that you don't want to do.
Because you can control more.
You
of
can
what's going on.
control your parts, you can control the parts that you want to do, and you can still do better overall. But I also want to be able to, set my children's children up in almost a Carnegie kind of way, as opposed to like a Vanderbilt way. I don't want to just lump sum leave 2 million, say, or 3 million in my kid's lap and say, here you go, when I die.
And not
I
know what
want
to do with it.
Yeah, I want them to have the skills to be able to either manage it on their own and or say, this portion's for you, this portion's for your children, or this portion is for your children's children. However, my trust is set up when that comes. If I died right now, yeah, everything's going to my children, just because that's how it's set up at this point. However, with the trustee. But I have a feeling as our portfolio develops and as I get older, that trust will be modified and changed. But it's just, we don't have that much in assets at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So.
Anything else you would want to add about your whole philosophy or?
Well, the whole idea is just to be able to give us options to be able to be home, be retired or semi-retired. And I like anesthesia, but I never leave the anesthesia world and say, man, I can't wait to get back and spend all my time away from the family.
Right.
So my goal is to be able to go work when I want to go work, as opposed to saying I have to go back to work.
But you're
it
also
doesn't
taking
mean-
a trip this year too, right?
Oh, we've taken a few trips, and we're still planning to take a few trips. So it's not like I have to, be without
Income.
taking my breaks. I do enjoy a good life, and that is, I work hard in order to support everybody, but we do take our breaks still. I've worked for 23 years, so there's a few of these gray hairs here now, and we've saved enough to be able to do those things, but that's why we have the portfolio that we have now. But at the same time, we do plan to continue this for a while. If I was planning to have everything paid off in 2 years, I wouldn't be able to do what we're doing.
I was saying though that like when you go to Europe later this year or this summer, is you can't do anesthesia over in Europe, but you can still get income from your real estate, from your laundry.
From the laundromat, yeah.
We'll
still have something coming in.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
But you couldn't go over there and.
We can't take 2 months and go to Europe. No.
No, but I'm saying you wouldn't get any income if it was just strictly anesthesia because you have to physically be there.
Oh, absolutely. Correct.
So it makes you more flexible, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
I guess.
absolutely. I mean, if we didn't have social media dollars, if we didn't have any of those other things, not that this is bringing anything, but
Well, maybe.
maybe
one day.
someday.
Who knows?
Right. But, anyways, that's a little insight into where my world starts and kind of goes at this point,
If you have any questions for John about his businesses,
or how I do things. Please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try and answer them.
the best way you know how, right?
That's always how I do things. I'm usually a pretty open book. Of course, I don't mention the whole financials, but I'll be glad to answer what I can. If there's questions about how I do things or that kind of thing, happy to do that, and I'll try and interview Suzanne a little bit next time.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Thanks for showing up, and thanks for sticking to the
Hey.
end.
Subscribe to us.
Yes.
Talk to you later.